journalist has conducted an interview with a major world leader, and the news media are outraged, practically foaming at the mouth with righteous indignation, because apparently that's where we are now in this bizarre clown world we used to call real life. Now, why is the entire news business, term used loosely, so up in arms about a journalist doing journalism? Well, because the journalist is Tucker Carlson, and the major world leader is Vladimir Putin. And in the irony of ironies, the most frenzied howls of protest are coming from our friends at CNN, Tucker Carlson's former employer, if you need yet another layer of irony. Yesterday, some maniac on CNN actually said that for committing the heinous crime of interviewing the president of a major world power, Tucker Carlson should be declared a traitor to the Republic and or refused entry back into the United States. And why is that ironic? Well, let's see how many of these I can remember just off the top of my head from my own living memory. I recall CNN doing an interview with Saddam Hussein during the first Gulf War when there were American hostages, including women and children, actively being held and used as human shields. And then I remember they interviewed Saddam Hussein again during the run-up to the second Gulf War II, Baghdad Boogaloo. Oh, and they interviewed Osama bin Laden in his cave in Afghanistan during the period between the 98 embassy bombings and the 9/11 attacks. And they went to Havana and interviewed Fidel Castro on a few different occasions, during all of which he was holding thousands of political prisoners, including many journalists. They interviewed Robert Mugabe when he was actively engaged in the ethnic cleansing of white Zimbabwean farmers. And I could go on at some length, but I think you get the point. There basically is no autocratic dictator anywhere in the world in the last 40 years that CNN hasn't interviewed. So what changed between then and now? Oh, you know what changed. All that other stuff, that was before the great Trump-Russia collusion hoax of 2016, which, even though it's been long since thoroughly and utterly discredited and debunked in every way that a hoax can be, the fake news performance artists at CNN and elsewhere, they still cling to it like a frightened 4-year-old clutching a baby blue security blanket. Is there any reason the American people shouldn't want to hear what Vladimir Putin has to say? Especially in light of the fact that he's fighting a war in which you and me and everybody you know is bankrolling the other side to the tune of, what is it now? It's so hard to keep track. 130, 140 billion, somewhere in that neighborhood? I think it's been 2 full years since our Congress passed any sort of a bill that didn't include an 11-figure gift for our friend Muscle Shirt Jesus and the Ukes. So it would seem, in a normal, sane world where reporters care about reporting, that the American people have a deep and abiding interest in understanding why this war is being fought that we are all paying for. But alas, we're not in a normal, sane world, are we? So the people we used to call journalists are basically lighting their hair on fire and gnashing their teeth and rending their garments over Tucker Carlson giving a platform to the president of Russia. Because that's just too dangerous. We can't run the risk of any non-establishment approved narratives escaping into the wild. Can you imagine what might happen if the American people realized this fight for democracy is really the most lucrative money laundering scam in all of world history? We can't let Vladimir Putin say things. That's madness. The people already know as much as they need to know, which is that Vladimir Putin is a bad, evil, bad man who attacks other countries just because he's a big old meanie who hates freedom and democracy. If we give a guy like that a platform, he might try to explain that we ourselves precipitated this conflict by trying effectively to turn Ukraine into the 51st state, into an outpost of American woke leftism, in addition to being an outpost of NATO and the European Union. He might point out that President and semi-animated cadaver Joe Biden spent the first 6 weeks of 2022 practically begging him to send his armored divisions rolling across the Ukrainian border. He might point out the abject idiocy of the U.S. establishment-approved narrative that says he, Putin, blew up his own gas pipeline because he wanted to make Russia weaker and less wealthy, I guess? And on that note, he might also point out that Joe Biden said right out loud in public with reporters present that if Russia invaded Ukraine, then we, the United States, we would destroy the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And worst of all, he might point out that Joe Biden and the Biden family spent the years between 2016 and 2020 regularly traveling to Ukraine and collecting fat bags of bribe money from various corrupt oligarchs and government officials. And once again, we have Joe Biden on the record in public with reporters present, casually bragging about the fact that he leveraged congressionally approved U.S. foreign aid against the firing of the state prosecutor who was investigating his family's various sleazy dealings in that country. Son of a bitch, that prosecutor got fired! I will never have any explanation for what possessed him to blurt that out, except that he might actually be the stupidest man in the history of the universe. So there is no great mystery why nobody in the Biden administration or the military-industrial complex wants this interview to ever see the light of day. And since the news media now function as little more than ridiculous water-carrying handmaidens for the administrative state and the defense contractors, they're going to do as they're told, say what they are instructed to say, and be outraged about whatever they are told to be outraged about, up to and including the dastardly crime of a journalist doing journalism. Just you wait until they try to publish the interview. You are going to see the most hardcore industrialized censorship operation since Hunter's laptop and the China virus had a bastard love child named Delusion. Hit the music, Jim Eagle.